Sam Israel here from CBS 6 Sports. Capital Region fans, you are in for a very special treat. If you love New York sports, you may know this guy. You can catch him on digital platforms in the New York sports landscape. You can see his work on the New York Post Sports, New York Got Game podcast. You can catch him as well. Without further ado, let's welcome in Dexter Henry. Dexter, really appreciate your time, man.
No, thanks for having me, Sam. Always good to see you, and I hope all is well. Thank you.
So let's talk sports, Dexter. Again, this is a few days ago. Have to talk about Knicks in Detroit, but because the Knicks had their biggest comeback victory this season against the Houston Rockets, 108 to 106, 18-hole deficit this team was in. Dexter, there's some national outlets saying the Knicks are done. They're not going to the finals. They are down in the fourth quarter. It's easy for this team to give up, but time and time again, they come through. What does a win like this do for the confidence level of this team?
I think it does a lot coming off of, obviously it depends on what they do going past this win, Sam, so we'll see. It can do a lot. One thing I think we've seen with the Knicks is we've seen resilience in terms of if they get down big. We saw this in the NBA Cup final game. They were down 13 to San Antonio. They get back. We saw the first game after that NBA Cup final. They had a shorthanded team in Indiana, and they came back and won that. We've seen the Knicks fight and come back. I think to that point, that's what made Thursday night and the games against the Pistons so dispiriting, right? So disappointing for teams, for fans, was that you wanted to see that fight, that resistance, and you didn't see that, particularly defensively. So you wonder if the Pistons are a little bit in the Knicks' head, but you have seen them fight against other teams. Listen, I get it. After that, there was going to be a lot of people that threw the dirt on the grave of the Knicks. There's still a lot of basketball to be played. We saw last year they were 0-10 against the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Thunder. They are right now 0-3 against the Pistons. They've beat the Celtics. This is a Rockets team that is solid, although challenged offensively at times. They beat them. They have some games coming up against some tougher opponents. They've got the Cavaliers coming up. They have the Spurs coming up. They have the Thunder coming up. So I think for the rest of the season, it's about seeing how they do against those teams. But this kind of win can absolutely spark them. So it's really important. We're still talking about a Knicks team that's won 11 at the time of us recording this, 11 of their last 14 games. So, but people want to see how they do against these upper echelon teams, which I get. And the Detroit play has been disappointing, but I do think this can spark them. We have to see. It really is about what they do with the adversity and how they move from it going forward. We have to see what they're able to do here.
You brought up that just that hot stretch there, I believe. Entering All-Star break, they had won 10 of their last 12. This Houston team had a 5-game road winning streak entering this matchup with the Knicks. So this win certainly, like you said, could certainly fuel this Knicks team. I want to get to one guy, obviously. We saw once again in action, Grand Theft Alvarado. Jose Alvarado, 5 steals and 2 in crunch time. Just what has he meant to this Knicks team? And do you believe he's earned closing time minutes?
Yeah, well, okay, so I'll take the first part of that, what he's meant to this team. This is a guy who's a native New Yorker. He's from Brooklyn. I saw him play a little bit in high school. I know his high school coach pretty well, covering Christ the King over the years. I spoke with Jar Patello, his high school coach, after the trade, and he said, I think he's going to fit in perfectly here. He's a guy who knows how much of a hard worker Jose is. Joe Arbitello told me he didn't think that some of the things he did, like the stealing, the sneaky steals that he'll get, he didn't even think that was going to work for him or get him to the NBA. But it has. This is a guy who is from New York, understands the culture, fits this team. He knows what Knicks fans want to see. And I think the Knicks needed some of that oomph, that energy when they got him at the deadline. I thought he was a great fit. He can play solid backup point guard minutes. He's going to run the show. He's not going to turn over the ball. He's going to get you assists. He'll get you about 4 or 5 assists off the bench. He'll get you some tough points. I think he's going to mean a lot to this team. The biggest thing, though, to me, Sam, is he's a really good point of attack defender, despite his size. Really good point of attack defender. He's going to frustrate the opposing team's point guard or lead ball handler. And I think that's going to be huge for the Knicks come playoff time. In terms of closing minutes, yes, he can get closing minutes. We saw this against the Rockets. He closed. He played the final 5 minutes and 1 second of this game. He was playing over Mikal Bridges. He was playing over Josh Hart. Coach Mike Brown has shown a willingness to go with who is playing the hardest defensively, sometimes regardless of if there is a discrepancy in size. with the other team. So you saw Landry Shamet close that game. I thought that was very telling. But this isn't shocking from Coach Brown. He's been showing that he's willing to do this. And so, yes, I think you're going to see lineups where it's going to be a small backcourt of him and Jalen Brunson. But because he can cover up for some of the defensive liabilities that you have with Jalen Brunson and is a much better point of attack defender, when you pair him with a guy like a Landry Shamet out there on the floor or OG Anunoby who's out there on the floor against the Rockets, and then you had Brunson and Cat, it was a good look to get at a lineup where we know the Knicks' two best offensive players are not their best defensive players, but if you can surround them with the right kind of defensive players, they can get things done. You saw what he came up with 5 steals against the Rockets. Jose Alvarado is a game changer. He's a guy who can change games with the 20 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes that he's playing. And so, yeah, I think you can see him in some closing lineups against the right matchups. I absolutely think you can see that.
And just looking back last year, I think one of the talking points for this Knicks team was Thibodeau wasn't using that bench. He wasn't utilizing the bench. And going off that Alvarado point, how do you believe Alvarado and now Jeremy Sohan's as well? And we saw the Knicks, obviously, he's not playing recent games, but Jordan Clarkson. How does this Knicks team look different thus far from last season's team when it comes to that bench production?
So the thing you talked about is the willingness of Coach Brown to play different lineups. And I've said this all season long. I think that's huge. I think it was a huge part of why the Knicks made the change they did at head coach. I think a lot of talk has been about who's the better coach. Is it Tibbs? Is it Coach Brown? And, I'd say they're probably pretty equal in their standing. I think the difference is Coach Brown has shown that he's willing to be a little bit more malleable, is what I will say, Sam. And I think that matters. And I think that matters a ton through the playoffs. You mentioned Jeremy Sohan, who the Knicks just picked up on the buyout market. I think Coach Brown is going to see how he comes along. Now, he didn't play as many minutes against Houston as he did against the Pistons. I think he played 9 minutes against the Pistons, only 4 against Houston. I think you'll see a little bit more of him, especially on back-to-backs. I think you'll see some of that. Can you use him against the other team's best scorer? He's a guy who's going to give you that good effort defensively. So I do think there's lineups you can see him in. We've seen Coach Brown use Muhammad Diawara, whose development I have liked. We've seen that as well. We've seen throughout the season. I know Clarkson's out the rotation right now. I know Tyler Kolek is out the rotation right now. But the minutes those guys got even earlier in the season, it matters because what happens if you get into a playoff situation and somebody gets hurt or somebody's not playing as well? Guys know a role they can come into. You've seen them do it before. You can trust them. They've had the reps. I think that matters a ton for the bench in terms of their production. It's everybody knowing that they can stay ready. It's everybody knowing that they have a chance to contribute, right? And I think guys getting those experiences, it really matters. Yes, when he gets to the playoffs and as you get closer, Coach Brown, you're starting to see it now, is going to go with who he really trusts. And he's going to lean a lot on defense, which isn't that different from Tom Thibodeau. But I think just expanding the rotation a little bit during the regular season, experimenting with different lineups, that matters a ton in the playoffs where you don't want guys to be burnt out. If you need to go 10 deep, you can, and you can trust that. I think the good teams right now in the NBA are deep. They have depth. They're willing to go 10 deep. We saw that last year in the finals with OKC in Indiana. And I think Coach Brown, he probably wants to keep it around 9. But I think if he has to pick up minutes with a guy, he has to get extra minutes. He's going to trust that 10th man to come in, even if it's to get 5-6 minutes. Those guys being ready, that's valuable. And that's where the malleability comes in to play during the regular season.
And you saw the advantage of when teams are able to go so deep. You look at the Indiana Pacers last year, then they could play super fast. They could use players can expend more energy because the minutes are being spread out. And obviously, there are only so many minutes that you can allocate. And with that, you brought up Jordan Clarkson. You did bring up Tyler Kolek. I'm curious now, with Jose Alvarado now seeing these minutes, how do you see Jordan Clarkson, Tyler Kolek? Are you expecting to eventually crack back into rotation? And how do you think when Deuce McBride returns from injury, how do you expect that to be impacted when it comes to Mike Brown's rotation?
That's, to me, the biggest question is McBride, who I think is going to be very interesting. It'll probably take a little bit of Jose's minutes. That would be my guess. Probably take some of Diawara's minutes he has because Deuce is one of their best point of attack defenders as well. But I think you could see a lot of good minutes with Deuce and Alvarado playing together in the backcourt. Deuce coming back is only going to strengthen their defense. Clarkson, he's an interesting guy because, he was playing. It hasn't worked out great. He's had some spurts. My thing with him is he's a professional scorer, and I still feel like there's going to be a moment or two down the stretch of the season, maybe even in the playoffs, where the Knicks could be in a rut. They could not be scoring, and you're like, I need somebody to give me some offense off the bench. Jordan Clarkson can help you with that. Defensively, he has not been as good, and I think that's why he really hasn't played. It's not so much about the offense, which has not been great either, but defensively, he hasn't. So I think when McBride comes back, he takes some of Clarkson's minutes. I wonder if that pushes Diawara out the rotation or Sohan. I think it'll be interesting to see who kind of takes that stretch 4/3 role off the bench. That's going to be very interesting because Mitch is going to play. McBride's going to play when he gets back. And I think Alvarado's a lock to play. I just think because of what those guys bring defensively. I just think what Brown will do is what happens if I need a little bit more offense off the bench? Is that for me to use a Clarkson? Kolek, I think, will be out. I don't see it because while I love the playmaking, he's still not just there defensively. And I think he's gotten better, but I just don't see that. But Kolek's a guy, because of the minutes he's gotten this year. What if you get an injury to Alvarado? What if Deuce can't come back as soon? He's a guy I think that can be ready to give you some minutes. I don't know if I trust him in playoff minutes yet, but I think he's a guy that, if needed, because of the experience he's gotten this season, he can help you. So it's going to be a very tough decision, Sam, for Coach Brown when he gets back. But Deuce, I think, is getting a lot of those minutes when he gets back. He's not losing his spot because of injury. And I actually think it's going to be interesting to see what guys play really well. The other guy I didn't even mention in that, coming off the bench, and I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon, is Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet has been fantastic defensively. You could argue he's been a more impactful defensive player this season than Mikal Bridges for this team. So, yeah, I think the Knicks have some good issues. I think it's a good problem to have. You would wish they had a little bit more size, and I think that's where I'm more intrigued about how he'll choose to use Diawara or Sohan off the bench, because the Knicks are going to need some size. Who's going to get those minutes off the bench as the sort of stretch wing 3-4 guy? That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, certainly will be interesting to see how Mike Brown utilizes that bench. We talked about last season to this season when it comes to the bench and how Mike Brown opts to use that bench a little more than Tom Thibodeau. I think just looking last year to this year too, obviously the Detroit Pistons we faced last year, and we beat them. This year, though, we lost every single game. We lost all 3 games by over 15 points. I believe the margin is actually, we've lost them combined by over 80 points. And Motorcade is just, 42 points. He just came into MSG and just silenced Knicks fans. Where do you see the Knicks in terms of just being able to beat this team? What's the X factor? What has to change for this Knicks team to be able to, hold their own against the Pistons?
They got to be better defensively. It's really that simple. They have to be better defensively. Detroit has killed them with back cuts time and time again. They haven't made Detroit uncomfortable. Cade Cunningham has looked way too comfortable. Cade Cunningham is great. I just want to be very clear about that. He's a fantastic player. You are not going to stop him, but there hasn't been that resistance to slow him down. I think what's disappointing is Detroit doesn't really have a great secondary shot creator on this team beside Cade Cunningham. So I'm not saying this disrespectfully, like it's Cade Cunningham and a bunch of dudes, but they are very good players. The Knicks have, they've gotten whooped without seeing Jalen Duren this year. The last game there was no Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart. They have to be better defensively, 1, Sam, and they have to match the physicality, 2. They have not matched the physicality of the Pistons. I think that is a big knock on this Knicks team this season. They don't always bring the physicality. Coach Brown has talked about this. He even mentioned it after the Houston game. He said he liked their physicality late in that game. I would agree with that. When they've brought the physicality, it's been great. But who's bringing the physicality? It's been players like, we know Brunson's a tough player, so I'm not going to say that. But players like Alvarado has, Shamet has. We'll see if Sohan does it. Those were guys who closed against the Rockets. right? Those were guys you saw closing against the Rockets because they're bringing that level of physicality. And that hasn't always been there from everyone else. So I think that's the key thing with Detroit. Detroit right now is shown to be way more physical than the Knicks. The Knicks need to tap into that more. They have to show it. Now, do they have all the players to do it? That's a bigger question. What is the true identity of the Knicks? Who are they? I think that's a huge question we're asking even at this point in the season, which might be a little disconcerting to some fans, but they haven't shown to have a physical identity. And I think that's the biggest thing. The defense has got to be a lot better against the Pistons, and they have to bring physicality back against the Pistons. They have to meet them with that physicality. That's part of want to, that's part of effort that they've got to show. And we just haven't seen that thus far this season against the Pistons. If the Knicks played the way we've seen them play, because it isn't about, when I say fight, it isn't about, I don't think Knicks can come back in a game. We just saw them have their largest comeback of the season, 18 points down in the fourth quarter. That's fight. Are you going to bring that level of physicality all the time against a team that wants it, against a team that is mad that you knocked them out of the playoffs last year? That's the key, because I think the Knicks have the most talented roster in the East. I think they actually have the most depth in the East, but that doesn't win you series all the time. You have to bring that extra oomph, and we haven't seen that from the Knicks this season, particularly against Detroit. And I think that's what's going to take improved defense, attention to detail on that end, and more physicality.
Now, I believe in that Detroit game. That was OG Anunoby's first game back, right?
It
In a
was,
while,
yes.
right?
Yeah, it was.
So, I mean, what factor do you think that may have had of him just trying to get back into the swing of things, just not playing, being a little rusty there?
Yeah, I wasn't killing OG after that game. He did not have a good game. We can keep it real. He did not have a good game in that one, Sam. But I also was like, it's his first game back. He's dealing with the toenail avulsion. My thing was, I was really looking at him against the Rockets and saying, okay, how do you bounce back? And he bounced back well. He had 16 points in the first half and only had 4 in the second half. And the offense looked much better, but it was its defense that was good. He looked like that all NBA first or second team defensive player that we saw earlier in the season. That was the key to me. He was tremendous on Kevin Durant. He made life tough for KD. KD was 9 of 24 from the field. That's what you want to see from OG Anunoby. So for me, adversity, if you want to take it to a player or it's a team, Sam, for me, it's always about how do you bounce back. You're not going to always have your best games. You're going to have disappointing stretches or a game. How do you bounce back? The Knicks bounce back in a major way against the Rockets. OG Anunoby bounced back in a major way. So I wasn't someone who was killing him in his first game back. He hadn't played a basketball game in over 2 weeks. It takes time. You're trying to get back in a basketball shape. You're getting your conditioning. You're trying to get your feel back. I wasn't killing OG Anunoby. I know some fans were. It was his first game back. Like, I think OG will be fine. I think what you want to see is that same level of defensive intensity that you saw from him early in the season, because when he brings that level of intensity on defense, this rises everybody's energy on this team up because he's that special of a defender. And so he's the best all-around defender. And so, yeah, they're going to need him to play that level of defense that we saw from him against Kevin Durant for the rest of the season into the playoffs.
Another player that fans have had their eyes on when it comes to Detroit, who's been under a little scrutiny, has been, Towns, Karl Anthony Towns. What do you believe he has to do for, what does he have to do for Knicks fans to earn that back from Knicks fans, the confidence level? Because I think there's been some Knicks fans skeptical of Towns when it comes to maybe not being aggressive enough, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think with him is that he doesn't. I'm going to use the P word again, physicality. He's got to bring that physicality. I thought against the Rockets, something the Knicks did well as a team. I know there's been some talk about how do you get Karl Anthony Towns involved earlier into the offense and all this stuff. I think he's got to demand and want the ball uh consistently. Now, against the Rockets, Mike Brown, they definitely ran some more things for Cat. He posted up probably as much as I'd seen him post up this season. And I like that. And I thought he was aggressive. I thought he was more physical. I don't like when people, I think, lazily use the word soft on him, the label. I do think this team lacks that physicality. And New Yorkers, as we know this, Sam, like the Knicks teams to be physical, to play with that edge. They like that. This team doesn't always do that. And I get why fans are like, I don't know with this team. I get that. Cat doesn't always bring that. Cat needs to bring that more and bring it consistently. Sometimes we'll see it from him in spurts. And I think all of us watching that love basketball are like, where's this been? Why can't we see this from you more consistently? I thought he was really good against Houston. I thought it was one of the better games he had played all season. The other thing is when he tries to bring physicality, does he do it where he's under control? Because sometimes with Cat, you'll see the out of control. He'll have the hooking, the offensive fouls, and he's a momentum killer because he leads the league in offensive fouls and not drawing offensive fouls, actually generating offensive fouls, right? Like he leads the league in that, which is not a good stat. He's got to be under control. And I think he has to learn how to impose his physicality. He hasn't done that really for long stretches in his 11 seasons in this league. You wonder when it's going to come. I think Cat's a good player. I think he's an extremely talented player. It's the consistency of him imposing his will on other players. I think what's frustrating for fans is you saw a game against Detroit. No Jalen Duren, no Isaiah Stewart. It is you, Carlton Towns, against Paul Reed. And you didn't dominate that matchup. That's disappointing. That's where you don't see that. And the thing is, he's so important because in order for the Knicks to get to where they want to go, which is win an NBA championship with this current group, Karl-Anthony Towns has to undeniably be the second best player on the team. We saw it for 2 games or a couple stretches in the playoffs last year. He just isn't consistent with it. He can disappear in games. And I think some of it is, how do you get him involved? But I think some of it is, I think more of it for me is the want to from him. I have to want to play like this and bring this energy all the time for this team to help out Jalen Brunson. I have to want to dominate my matchup. I don't always see that from Cat. And I think that's what fans want to see. And I understand it. We know what Cat can do. It's bringing that physicality and that want to dominate consistently. That's what it has to be. So, yeah, the coach can help him only so much. You can get people touches, you can put him in the post, and that's all cool. The player has to go execute. I'm a big person on that. Scheme is one thing. Players are not robots. You don't just push buttons and then they'll do this. The player has to want to and then execute it at a high level. And at the end of the day, Cat's got to execute, and we'll see if he can do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we've seen Towns when he's on, he's on. I mean, against the Rockets, I mean, he was laying it up from deep. He was able to get his way inside. He was the big bodega. And I think, like you mentioned, I think coach may look into maybe, like you mentioned, maybe getting him some early looks to get his confidence going. But I want to get to another point there. I mean, Jalen Brunson, for example, he's a guy where he might not,
Mm-hmm.
score as much in the beginning like we saw with Houston. But we saw in that fourth quarter, just taking over the game, both offensively, defensively. He drew those charges. He hit those clutch shots. I believe Jalen Brunson has had 14 go-ahead field goals since he joined the Knicks 2022-2023, and second in the league, I believe, in go-ahead shots in that span. I mean, what is Jalen Brunson? I know we take it for granted, right? But what has he meant to this team, and where would you rank him even in the MVP conversation? You're looking at, obviously, Cade Cunningham. You're looking at Jaylen Brown with the absence of Jason Tatum. You're looking at Nikola Jokic. Where do you rank Jalen Brunson?
He's probably, I had him early in the season around fifth. He's probably slipped a little bit because, the Knicks had that tough stretch in January. Although, he could be back up. He's probably fifth or sixth in MVP conversation. You're talking Shea, Jokic, Cade, Luka, Wemby. I think him and Jaylen Brown are right that next. So I'm saying fifth or sixth. Yeah, they're that next person I probably put. I think those guys are ahead of him right now. But a lot can change between now and the end of the season because I do think there's a little bit of things up for grabs with the MVP race. Jokic has missed some time. He's coming, will he qualify? The same for Wemby and Shea, who's out right now as well, too. Those guys, he has a little bit more games to play with. It's going to be interesting for those guys because Brunson can creep right back up in there. Cade might have one of the strongest advantages because his team is at the top of the East. They're the best record in terms of percentage points right now. So that's interesting. But I think Brunson's right there. The Knicks have won 11 out of their 14. I think how they play against these upper echelon teams that they have left on their schedule, Cleveland, we're talking about San Antonio, OKC, how they play against some of those teams, and they have another West Coast trip coming up too. I think how they do then could really be a factor. How the Knicks close this season is going to be strong because if they do close strongly, I don't think they're not going to overtake the Pistons because they're just too far behind. But if they finish second in the East comfortably and they close strongly, I think you could see Brunson firmly in the top five. Depending on some other guys do, based on injuries and stuff, you can see him there too. As far as taking him for granted, Sam, I think sometimes people can't take it for granted. I think you're
Always
right
do.
about that. Yeah, yeah. Because, this guy has been so clutch. There's some conversation on the fan base about whether he's a ball hog or he's still the next best option in terms of late game situations. And when he's not having a good offensive game, I think you bringing up the Houston game is a perfect example. He had 2 points at halftime. He didn't shoot the ball well. I thought he played well in the flow of the game, despite not shooting the ball well. He wasn't shooting too much. He just wasn't hitting his shots. But he didn't have his first field goal. I think it was till 4:21 in the third quarter. So to have that happen and then go 4 for 4 from the field in the fourth quarter, 8 points, have the go-ahead basket, come up with huge plays, including a charge on Kevin Durant, including after getting he got the pass off the game-sealing rebound from Karl-Anthony Towns and then passed it ahead to Landry Shamet, who got fouled, which was a great pass. He just makes winning plays. This guy steps up. He'll get it done. I think it's ridiculous to criticize the captain. I think he's a guy who recognizes when he needs to do more to score and when he doesn't. I think Jalen Brunson's a winning player. I think he's a clutch player. I think people have a lot of thoughts about how they exactly want to see him play, but I think he's a winning player. And I hope Knicks fans don't take him for granted because he's just a tremendous player. And I think it will be great to see him win here in this city because he's meant so much to this franchise and has lifted him up since he's came here. And he's one of the best players in the NBA. There's no doubt about that. And I think depending on how the Knicks close, he should strongly be in the top five of the MVP conversation.
And I think that's what makes him so dangerous. It's just his ability to impact the game, not just scoring, but by doing the other things. I mean, knowing maybe in the first half, okay, let's get other teammates involved. I don't have to score now. Or I can impact the game not just by scoring and hitting clutch shots, but I can draw charges too defensively, and I can sacrifice my own body. And what is that saying about the me doing that as the best player and the tone that sets with the rest of the team? So he's certainly just a great dangerous player for other teams. And, Captain Clutch, and the captain we love as Knicks fans. My question for you, Dexter, I mean, we're looking at the Eastern Conference. For this sake of this, we're going to ignore Detroit. You're looking at Boston Celtics. You're looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers. We obviously see them Tuesday. With the Cleveland Cavaliers having James Harden, with Boston Celtics trading recently for Vucevic, with Tatum potentially coming back with how they're performing, which one of those two teams do you fear more come playoff time?
It's actually the Celtics for me. The reason is they're well coached. Joe Mazzulla is a good coach. I know the Celtics, the Knicks beat them down a couple of Sundays ago, Sunday before the All-Star break, and had a very, very strong defensive performance in the second half. That should encourage Knicks fans. I just have a lot of respect for the Celtics and how they play. I think Joe Mazzulla is a good coach. I think they've reshaped their identity and with retooling their roster. This was a year I think many people thought, oh, the Celtics will be 6th, 7th in the East, whatsoever. But they're playing good defense. They still have winning players on that team. Jaylen Brown has been in the MVP conversation, as I mentioned. Nikola Vucevic, I think they made that move particularly because they like how they've been competing. And they said, okay, we need some more size, especially against a team like the Knicks. Just another body you can throw. Now, Nikola Vucevic is not a really good defensive player. So that's a matchup, depending on how they guard Cat, where I'm looking at like, man, you got to dominate that one, right? Like this is one you have to take. If they put Vucevic on him, they may not. They probably put Vucevic on Josh Hart. And they usually put a smaller player on Cat. A lot of teams have done that. Boston has shown to do that in the past. They put Drew Holiday on him last year. This Boston team can still defend. I think they've gotten better at they still take a good amount of threes, but they've sort of been more balanced in their shot diet this season. The intriguing thing for them too is a lot of people think Tatum can come back. What happens when Tatum comes back? How is he integrated into the team? This is where the Celtics are still dangerous. Will he come back? We still don't know that for sure. That's where they're dangerous because if they get their other all-star player back and he is healthy, although I'm sure there'll still be some growing pains with that, they could be dangerous. I just have a lot of respect for Boston. And I think it's their two-way ability, the way they can defend, the way they've retooled their roster, their coaching. I have a lot of respect for them. They're the team that probably scares me the most for the Knicks. To that point, So why I think it's imperative for the Knicks to finish strong. I think it's imperative for them to get that second seed. Because if they face Boston in the semis, you want to have that home court advantage. And I think that is very important. But I have a lot of respect for Boston. Cleveland is playing good basketball. Uh, I just wonder about them defensively in their backcourt with James Harden now. So yeah, Boston's the answer for me. I think they're the team I think about and look and say the Knicks. I think the Knicks will have healthy respect for them too. They shouldn't fear them, but I think the Knicks should come in with the energy that, hey, we'll take on anybody, but Boston's a team I respect out there for sure.
Gonna throw some quick express questions at you here. Lightning round. So Dex, favorite win so far this season?
It's probably the Rockets win. I might say the Rockets win. If it's not the Spurs win, I'm going to go with the Rockets just because of the comeback, just because it came after the Detroit game. I'm going to go Rockets. Go with that game.
All right. Will the Knicks regret not trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo?
No, because I think the better chance of them getting it was in the offseason, which I think if this team falls short is very likely to happen. So no, I don't think so. I just think Milwaukee was trying to get as much information as they can. I think it was more likely always the Knicks got him in the offseason.
In a potential matchup with the Detroit Pistons, most important Knicks player you're looking at?
Cat, Cat 1, Mikal Bridges 2. Those guys have to step up in that series and impose their will. I trust what Jalen Brunson would do. I don't trust what those guys are going to do consistently, but I'm going to put Cat 1, Mikal Bridges 2.
All right, Dex. Last question I have for you here. In order to call this season a successful one for the Knicks, how far do they have to go?
They got to go to the finals. Or at minimum, get to a game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Look, when you made the change with the head coach, which was the biggest offseason move they made, you were saying it's championship or bust. And we saw the statement that was put out by Leon Rose, and that's what the Knicks said. And finals, championship might be strong. Finals or bust at least. You had to get better than where they were last year. And I think that was fine. I think that was fair. I don't fault the Knicks for saying that. I think it was the right thing. I think you should have those expectations. So I think the Knicks have to get to the finals. I think they are still the most talented team in the East. I think they can get to the finals, but they have to play their best basketball. They have to bring that physicality. They have to be consistent. And look, it comes down to execution. They're going to have to execute on the court. But I still think they got to get to the finals. Otherwise, it's a disappointment.
We'll see what they do. Hopefully, we can see that happen. Dexter Henry, award-winning sports anchor, New York Post Sports, New York Got Game podcast. Dexter, if more people want to find you, how can they do so?
They can find me, follow me on all social media platforms at DHenryTV, or you can check out my website, dexterhenry.com. Check me out there.
Dexter Henry, always a pleasure, man. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you, Sam.